A lot of our requests come in by comment under the video sections, but we get a few by email, and here's one that came in by email. She says, I've watched lots of YouTube videos, and from time to time I hear an artist mention or talking about simultaneous contrast. And she asked for a quick tip to explain simultaneous contrast. So we'll find out what a contradiction can do to give us great paintings. Simultaneous contrast really is a contradiction because it's about how color affects color and how we can see one color and we'll see it in another situation and think it's a different color. Contradiction. Well, let me show you how that works. It's our perception that is behaving there. It's not necessarily what the color is doing, but how our perception perceives interaction of color. And artists use that in their painting to create more vibrancy and to guide the eye through the painting. But let's go into what causes it. I'll show you some examples, and then you can do some practice work and find maybe ways you can use it too. So simultaneous contrast is referring to what color does to color. Now I'm going to start out here with the color that we would call blue, and it's actually a low, rather not fully saturated blue, and it's about a little bit darker than middle value. I'm going to put it in several places here. I'm going to put several splotches here because I want to show you that you can do an exercise like this and study this thing for yourself to see how it works. So I'm going to give that nice smooth coverage, and I don't know, maybe put some more here. And let's just give it a good workout so that you can get a real idea of what happens here. Alright, so there's the blue. We would call that, as I said before, kind of a low intensity. Not too low. Falls about the saturation falls about right in here. This is my saturation scale. It shows what happens when you add complements to colors and how they get more neutral. And so that's what this is. Now, simultaneous contrast will work regardless of the saturation. So you can study it with almost any saturation, but if you want to do a really true study, then have all the colors that you use in the same saturation, same degree of neutrality. Alright, so I put those colors there. Now I'm going to start out by looking at the color wheel, as I always do when I'm working with color. I think we don't give the color wheel the use that it is designed to give us. So let me show you a way you can use it. Now, simultaneous contrast, opposites enhance each other as well as neutralize each other or contradict each other. That's what I mean by contradiction. So on the opposite scale, blue, we have blue and orange. Orange then is going to enhance blue. Now, if you see this blue here, you just read it as this blue as compared with the white surroundings. But then I want to put an orange there. Now, this is an orange that has been slightly desaturated, and you can see it falls about right in here. You can see that on my brush. So this is opposite of the blue, falls about right here. So I'm going to just surround one of these with the orange, and to surround it I need it to touch the color. It doesn't have to touch the color to affect it, but you can get a truer idea of what happens if you do your experiment in this way, where you actually have the color touching all the way around. Alright, so we're just going to do this and have it touch all the way around. And we don't notice quite yet how much that orange is enhancing that blue until I come here and do something different. Now, on the color wheel, colors opposite each other. Colors are opposite each other. That means they are as different from each other as they can possibly be. But in the way the colors work, the way the hues work, then one hue moves into another, moves into another, and moves into another, and the hues can only move in two directions. So an orange hue can only become either more red or more yellow. And then you can see if it's a red orange, it still has some orange in it, but then when it hits red, it has no orange in it anymore. And then the red continues to move towards the blue there, towards the complement. Then the red continues to move. It moves into red violet. It has red in it, but then it becomes violet, and violet still has some red in it. So that's the way primaries work. Primaries, red is a primary. So when primaries then, as they move towards another primary, mix with that primary and become, as you can see, red. Red then becomes red violet, becomes violet, which still has red in it, and then it becomes blue, which has no red in it. Now, why is that important? Because these are analogous to each other. They are like cousins. They have something of the same DNA in them. But then when you get over to the complements, they don't have any of the same DNA in them. All right, so I'll show you what happens. Now I'm going to go to a yellow orange, and this is orange that I have here around the blue. Now I'm going to go to a yellow orange, and it moves in this direction right here, as you can see. So I'm going to put a little bit of the yellow orange around the blue and let you see if you can see any difference, because a direct complement is the strongest enhancement or strongest relationship of contradictions between two hues. But then a hue that is made of another a color, in other words, an analogous color to a complement, can also neutralize. So let's just put this here beside it and see if you see any difference. Now this is a more saturated hue. The yellow-orange is a more saturated hue. I can get that in there without mixing too much. Now, do you feel a slight difference between those two? Does this one seem brighter to you? So now, rather than put an analogous color to the orange around it, I'm going to put an analogous color to the blue. And so what I'll do there is I'll just add into the blue itself. Let's just go right over here. I'll just add into the blue itself some red violet. Let's just add, we could add red or red violet, either one. Now I need to get that the same value so that it can be visible to you. And that's not the same, need more white than that. Get that in pretty much the same value range, because when you're mixing, or you're doing color studies especially, it's important to adjust the values of any two colors you mix in order to get the mixture in the same values you need. All right, so I'll pull these two together, and I'm going to make kind of a blue-violet. Now, look at the relationship here. This is analogous to that, and they're both surrounded by this one's complement. Now I'm going to surround it with an analogous color to it. I'm going to surround it with more or less a blue-violet, and in kind of that desaturated range. All right. Now watch what happens. Watch this color right here as I do that. So let me get the brush really good and loaded so I can be sure I'm going to have the same color all the way around. We're going to keep it in that blue-violet range and watch what happens. There we go. Get quite enough on there, but I'll get it now. There we go. And surround it on the top. Okay, so I cheated a little bit, didn't mean to. Now, notice how now this seems a different color. Now, if you look at this now, I begin to see a little bit, leaning a little bit more towards blue-green. This one seems to me to be a little bit bluer, and it seems even here to be a little bit bluer. But now that you look at this and compare here, can you believe that this, and this are all the same color? So there are two things going on there. One is that we have the analogous colors, and that means that those two hues blend together, so the simultaneous contrast is no longer there. But then we also have, because they are the same value or in a similar value range, we have that close value contrast. Now, I'm going to take it one step further. This goes a little bit out of the range of what the true definition of simultaneous contrast, because you'll see all the discussions of simultaneous contrast refer only to hue. But we have a similar kind of thing that happens to the values. And so what I'm going to do now is to take the same color, I'll just go right in here, the same color, and I'm going to put a darker value around it. And I'm going to put the darker value right here. Now you see, you compare this against the white paper or the white canvas, and it feels relatively dark. But now I'm going to surround it with a darker version. And let's get it pretty dark here. Now, I've got to get that reduced in intensity, so I'll reach up right here and grab a little bit of that complement to get the intensity reduced just enough. Now, okay, watch this. Compare this with this. Or you can compare this with this. This feels dark, and now I'm going to make it feel lighter. And so this will happen in your painting an awful lot. Sometimes you have, sometimes students, I've noticed, will have areas that they say, I just can't get that light enough. Well, lots of times what happens is that the color around it needs to be darker rather than trying to get an image's color or another color that's in question lighter. Now you see how much lighter that looks? But look here, see how much darker it looks? So that too is the effect of our perception. So we control how the viewer perceives our paintings as much by the color relationship, the colors that we place side by side, as we do anything else we do. And so a lot of times we did a quick tip, I think it was just the one prior to this, or maybe a little bit earlier back, where I showed you how you can unify a painting within one color area by repeating a color. Well, a lot of times this happens in the color green, that someone will see something that's green and they think it's green. So they paint the whole thing green and it looks too green. People have trouble with greens all the time. One of the reasons for that is that some of that complement needs to be in that green to give it some simultaneous contrast. And so that maybe is a quick tip for another time. But perhaps this then explains to you or shows you how that works. And we can do that same kind of experiment by moving all the way around the color wheel with a single color in our block, and then going with around the color wheel with all the other colors, and we can see how any single hue surrounded by another hue can then be perceived a little bit differently. And the closer the relationship is to two hues, the less different they feel. We also find out that the closer the relation, if we have two sets of color, the same color, and we have a different color surrounding that is a very close analogous relationship, we won't notice that much difference. It will seem very much in the same neighborhood, but then when we surround it with the complement enhances the color and instead of blends with it. In the analogous colors, the color actually blends, but the complement actually enhances the color. So then when we compare this with this, we think we see two different colors. So do an exercise like that to help you really understand what the simultaneous contrast principle can do for you. And you'll find that then when you're doing your paintings, there might be a number of ways that you can use it to actually enrich in your paintings, and then make people wonder, what did you do to achieve that color? Be sure to view all of our quick tips. And while you're doing so, subscribe to the channel, click on the bell, so you'll always get a notice when we produce a new quick tip, which is every week. And if you have a question, leave it in the comments section and we'll make a quick tip for you. Also, take a trip over to DianneMize.com, where I have full-length lessons, downloads, DVDs, lots of other stuff there, some free stuff for you. And while you're there, you can subscribe to the newsletter, and that way you'll always be informed every time we do something new.